Hi, I'm Shanna Waite, and I have decided to create this page, Adoption Talk, in hopes that it will help educate and bring to light what adoption is, and to help those who are along the path of adoption, who are trying to adopt, to help give them some guidance and direction and to understand the process a little bit. And I have teamed up with some amazing adoptive families to share their stories with you and to help you kind of see how each journey is a little bit different, and to hear these incredible stories and to see how these families come together. And so I thought I would kick this off with my own story. So my husband and I, we decided that we wanted to adopt a baby 9 years after we were married. And I always ask people what brought them to adoption. And for me, I kind of always just had it inside of me. When I was young, I always thought that I would adopt. I was very interested in adoption. I would talk about it with my friends and tell them that one day I was going to do it. And it just was something that was always with me. And as I started dating my husband, I asked him if he would ever be up for adoption, because it's something that I felt very strongly that I should do in my life. And he actually had those same feelings and said, yeah, it's something that I've thought about a lot, and I think that I could do as well, or will do as well. And so we kind of just went into marriage knowing that that was an option for us. So fast forward, we were married 9 years. During that time, I went to college. I was a dance major, and I was on some dance companies in college, and then I graduated and I was on some dance companies after I graduated. And I was starting to develop, being in this dance world, I was starting to develop some pretty serious body image issues. And I didn't know how bad they were until my husband and I started talking about having a baby and becoming pregnant. And the idea of being pregnant terrified me to death. And we had been married about 7 years when we started talking about, okay, I think it's really time for us to have a baby. And so I was trying to work myself up to getting pregnant, and I just couldn't do it. And I started to develop a lot of shame, and I started to feel like I wasn't worthy to be a mom. If I was nervous about being pregnant and I was so concerned about my body over having a child, then I couldn't be a mother. That meant I was going to be a terrible mother. And I had so much shame and guilt and resentment build up inside of me that it got worse and worse and worse. And so my husband would kind of just ask, how are we doing? How are you doing on this? Are you feeling better about it? And I was like, no, I'm not. I can't do this. I can't do this. I want to so bad. I want to be able to have a baby so, so bad, but I couldn't do it. And I would break down in tears. I would like physically close up. I just couldn't do it. And I hated myself for it. I felt like I was the worst person in the world, and that definitely meant that I shouldn't be a mom, because I was so scared to be pregnant. And so I let this build up inside of me, and it got worse and worse and worse. And the feelings about myself got worse and worse and worse. And I really started to be really down on myself. And people would ask all the time, when are you guys gonna have babies? You've been married for so long. And I would just kind of brush it off, because I couldn't tell them the real reason. I felt so shameful about it. And I hated myself for it. So I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I talked to my husband, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I felt so ashamed. And I just got into a really low place. And after we'd been married close to 9 years, probably about 8 years, my husband said, I really think it's time for us to have a baby and to build our family. And I said, I'm so sorry. I want to give this to you so bad. I am so terrified and I am so scared, but I will try. And so we decided to try, and I got off my birth control, and we tried for a short amount of time, but it was awful. I was just in an emotional, horrible down low place. And my husband could recognize that there was something that was really wrong. And so we stopped that because it was emotionally too difficult for me at that time. And we said, well, you know, we still want to be, my husband still was like, I really want to have children. And I said, I really want to give you children. I really do. And all of this sudden we had those remembrances come back of what we had talked about when we were dating about adopting a baby. And we thought, well, maybe this is something that we should look into now. And so in about August of 2012, we went, I spent a lot of time online researching adoption agencies, trying to decide what one I felt was a really good fit for us. I did a lot of research. I read a lot of reviews from people who had worked with agencies. And I found an agency that I felt really, really good about. And I saw that they were having an orientation meeting that same month, at the end of the month. And so in August, we went to this orientation meeting, and we both left that meeting feeling like, yes, this is what you were supposed to do right now. And for the first time in as long as I can remember, I was really, really excited about becoming a mom. And I was super pumped and I was super excited. I still had some negative feelings about not wanting to be pregnant. And I was still trying to work through some of those, but like, I felt very, very positively that this was the path that we were supposed to take at that time in our life. And so from August to February, we started saving money and working towards starting our paperwork with the idea that we would start adoption. So in February, we decided to start the paperwork. We did our paperwork, and you have to do a lot of paperwork, and you have to fill out what feels like the same thing over and over and over. And the reason that they do that is they want to check your answers. They want to cross-check and make sure that you are being honest. And so you feel like, I've already answered this question 10 times, but you have to kind of answer it again because they worded it a little differently, and it's just part of the process. And it's a way for them to kind of fact check and make sure that you're on top of, you know, your answers and what you're saying, and you're being honest. So we did our paperwork and we got that done. I plowed through that. There's so much to do. And I would come home from work and I would be like feverishly filling out paperwork. And my husband would come home and he was like, what is wrong with you? Are you crazy? And I was like, I don't know. I just feel really, really that I need to get this in, and I need to get it in now. And so I spent a lot of time doing that. We started working with a social worker and following the steps that we needed to take and the path that we needed to take until we could get to our home study. So we started paying some fees to have the social workers start working with us. And we got to, in about June, we had finished our paperwork, and we scheduled our home study for July, the next month. So we had our home study, and the social worker came to our house, and I was really nervous about the home study. I like cleaned out my drawers, and I, you know, made a nursery, and I painted it blue because I was like pretty sure that I was like, I know our baby's gonna be a boy. And my husband was like, you're crazy. And I was like, oh, well, that's what it's gonna be. But we didn't put that we wanted a boy over a girl. We left everything pretty open. And anyway, so our social worker comes, and it was just a nice, easy, you know, I had worried about it way more than I needed to. It was just a nice, easy chat between us, and she just got a feel for who we were. And so the next day, my husband, who was a youth leader in our church at that time, he went on a youth camp. And so I'm at home, I'm by myself. I get a phone call from our adoption agency telling me that they have a birth mom that they would like to show our profile to. And we had already done all of our profile. We had already done all of our like background checks and all of that prior to our home study. So everything was ready. We just needed the home study approved to get into the system. And when she left, she told us it's pretty normal for about 2 to 3 weeks before you're officially in the adoption system and you can start to be shown to birth moms. And so it was the next day. I was like, okay, but my husband's not here and I really need to talk to him about this. I don't feel like I can make this decision to have our profile shown to a birth mom without talking to my husband. And so I was like, he's on this camping trip. He's up in the mountains. He doesn't have any service. Let me try and get a hold of him. And if I can get a hold of him, I will call you back and let you know for sure what we want to do. And they sent me all the information about the birth mom for me to go over. And so I'm reading over all of this and I'm trying to call my husband. And of course it's just going to voicemail and I'm leaving him, I don't know, 97 voicemails. Please call me, hoping that maybe, somehow miraculously one will go through. Well, miracle one of the story was that on his way up to the camp, his car broke down. And that doesn't sound like a miracle, but he had to come into town the next day to get a part to fix it. And so he had one of the other leaders drive him down to town. And while he's in town, he gets cell service and his phone just blows up with all these messages that I had left him. And he listens to them and, finds out that they have a birth mom that they would like us to be shown to. And so he calls me back. We go over all the information that the agency has sent us together. And we decide that, yes, we want to have our profile shown to this birth mom. So I call them, I tell them that we have talked and we've decided to go ahead and have our profile shown. So about 2 weeks go by and I get a call. We are just on our way out the door to my husband's family reunion that we always have with his family on the 24th of July. And it was the 23rd of July. We were headed out the door and I get a phone call. I look down and I see the adoption agency is calling us. And my heart just like explodes out of my chest. It's pounding so hard. And I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Why would they be calling us if it wasn't to tell us about this birth mom? So I answer the phone in my quavering, nervous voice. And they tell us that that birth mom has chosen us. And she's the only birth mom who has ever looked at us. And it was insane because it's not a common thing to happen. And we felt so, so blessed. And she was pregnant with a little boy and she was due the next month. So we were going to be parents quick. And luckily I had the nursery ready and my family and friends were really good to throw me baby showers really quick and help me get the baby items that we needed so that we could bring our baby home. And everything went really, really smoothly. And we felt very, very blessed because with adoption, you just never know what's going to happen. They fall through, parents decide to keep the baby. You just don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes you're in the system for years. And so we felt very lucky that we technically weren't even, our home study wasn't yet quite approved. It was in the works, but that we were already matched with a birth mom. And our social worker who had done our home study was also working with our birth mom, which isn't very common that they match up like that. But she said she left our house that evening and she said she knew that that was our baby. And so she had stayed up all night working on our paperwork so that we could even be shown to that birth mom because she knew she was choosing parents within that next weekend. And so that was really miraculous. And we are really, really grateful for a social worker who listened to her gut and followed what she had felt after she left our house. So that month was a whirlwind. It went by super fast. And funny little tidbit, we were, as I said, headed out to my husband's family reunion, and we had some of the food, like the main food that was supposed to be served there. And we were, of course, late because I had to call my mom. I had to call, lots of people. And we didn't call any of my husband's family because we were just going to see them in just, we were going there to see them. So of course I had to like compose myself a little bit. And we get over there, we are late, and everybody's a little bit cranky that we didn't show up, and we had the food and people have been waiting on food. And so we came out and they were kind of, and then I couldn't hold it in anymore. And I just said, we're gonna have a baby. And everybody just screamed. My sister-in-laws just started crying. They ran and they hugged me. We were all crying together. And it was just like the coolest way to announce that to their family, because they were all there in one place and the reaction was so incredible. And I will always, always remember that. And so that week or that month went by really, really fast, except for the day he was being born went really, really slow. I was like, oh, come on, is he here yet? Is he here yet? And our birth mom decided to have him. Luckily, she flew out here for the last month of her pregnancy. So we were lucky in that regard as well, that she was in the same state that we were in. And having our son only an hour north of where we live. So again, we were super, super blessed and super lucky. And she decided to have him on her own there in the hospital with just the social worker and the doctor there. And that was her request. So we went along with that because we wanted her to feel comfortable. But we had met her a few times, and we had been to lunch and dinner a few times in that month between when she picked us and when she had the baby. So we were waiting to hear. And she had gone in to be induced the night before they kind of started her. And so we were just trying to do anything to keep our minds occupied, because it just, it feels really long when you're in that last little bit. And we went to lunch with some of my husband's work associates. And we were at lunch, and I would get these text messages coming in about how she was progressing and how she was doing, and sending our love back to her through our social worker. And he was born. We finished the lunch, we came home, and he wasn't born very long after that. He was born at 2:17 in the afternoon. And they sent us a picture of our sweet baby boy, and he had dimples and dark curly hair, and he was 5 pounds 10 ounces, just this tiny but full-term healthy baby boy. And it was really funny because I had been telling my husband these things about the baby. Even before we had been matched, I was like, I know we're gonna have a boy. I know he's gonna be a little baby. I know he's going to be super smart. And there was just things that I felt like I really knew about this child. And come to find out, they all came to be true. And that was my son. And I feel like that was a way of God telling me that, yes, this is your son. You know him. You know who he is. And I did. I really felt very strongly that I knew who this was. And so we were able to go up to the hospital. She wanted to spend that first day with him alone at the hospital. And so we were able to go up into the hospital the next day. And so we went to the hospital, and we met our social worker outside in the lobby. And she was like, are you ready for this? And I was so nervous. I was like excited, nervous, like my heart was pounding, and I was like jittery because I was so excited. I was just gonna meet my baby. And so we went into the room, and our birth mother was holding our son. And she asked us if we wanted to hold him, and I picked him up in my arms, and I knew him. I knew my baby, and he was just what I thought he was going to be. And he was this perfect, precious little boy. And she asked us, are you happy? And I was like, I don't think I've ever been this happy before. And I didn't want to let him go. My husband, I held him for quite a while. My husband was like, can I have a turn? And I was like, okay, but you get like 10 minutes and then you have to give it back. So we spent that day in the hospital, and our birth mom was, of course, recovering. And so sometimes she would want to be alone or to sleep or to rest. and they allowed us to go into the nursery with our baby. And there wasn't, he was born at the end of August. And so there wasn't, for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of babies being born at that time in the hospital. And so we had this nursery room all to ourselves. And I was just holding and rocking my baby, and he was looking at me, and he was so attentive and so alert. And I was just talking to him and telling him about our family and how he came to be there and how grateful I was. And the hospital at that time, they have different regulations now, but at that time they allowed us a room. And so they got us a room ready. And after our birth mom decided to check out that day from the hospital and go back to the apartment that she had been staying in that was provided by our agency. And something that really surprised me was the amount of love. Not surprised, I guess, but the feeling was so strong. It was stronger than I had expected. Was my love for our birth mom. And as she was walking out and leaving, I felt this heartbreak. I just was so sad for her and loved her so much. I felt like, we'll take care of you too. Come stay with us. We'll take care of you. And of course that couldn't happen. But my love was just bursting for her. And I cried and cried and cried when she left. And she needed her time to heal. And so we didn't get to see her again after that. She went back to the apartment, and then I think it was the next day she flew home. She just felt like she needed to go home. And we've stayed in touch with her over the years through emails and pictures and letters. And we are just super grateful, and will love her and feel like she is part of our family too. And so I was able to spend that night with Milo. We chose to name him Milo in the hospital. And it was such an incredible night. And of course I didn't go through pregnancy and birth, and so I was feeling pretty chipper. I was super excited. And the nurses would come in, and again, they didn't have a lot of babies, and Milo was just super adorable. And so they kept like trying to persuade me to let him go into the nursery with them so that they could have a baby in there. And I was like, no, you can't take him. He's staying here with me. I will do it all. You can't take him. And I remember at night, my husband went home to sleep that night, and I stayed with Milo. And that night there was a really big thunderstorm with big lightning. And there was this big bay window in my hospital room, and it had a bench with some pillows. And so I just took Milo over there, and we sat on this bench, and we watched and listened to the lightning and the thunder. And I was just holding this baby, my baby, so completely at peace with my world. And all those fears that I had about motherhood, and all of the worry and the anger that I had for myself were gone. And I knew that that was the right thing for me to do at this time, that we were supposed to adopt that baby because that was our baby and he was coming. And so I realized that what we were fighting for me to get pregnant, in that moment I realized that we were fighting for the wrong thing. We were trying to force something that wasn't right for us at that time. We weren't supposed to get pregnant at that time because we were supposed to adopt Milo. And there were so many miracles that happened along that road that showed me that time and time again that he was supposed to be with us. One of those stories really quick was when we had done lots of fundraisers and things to help earn the money to bring him home. Adoption is unfortunately very expensive, and we are not wealthy people. We were middle class at best, living in a small, very old 120-year-old home when we adopted Milo. And we had done fundraisers, and when we got matched with Milo, and knew the exact price, because every adoption's a little different depending on where the baby is and if the mom has insurance and things like that. And so you don't know those final numbers until you've been matched up, and the money is all due at time of placement. And so you need to have all that money there before you bring the baby home. And we had this old house that had, we bought at the height of the market, and the market crashed months after we bought it. We had old cars that weren't worth anything. And we were trying to find, we needed $200 extra a month to be able to pay our loan, this adoption loan that we had got. And we didn't know where this money was going to come from. And we had been trying to refinance our house for years because of, like I said, it wasn't worth what we had paid for it anymore. And so we were trying to refinance, and it was a really weird time. It was 2006 when we bought it, and somehow or other, it was our first house we bought. We didn't really know what we were doing. And the loan that we got was only offered in 2006. It was this weird loan. And so nobody wanted to refinance us. It wasn't backed by Freddie Mae or Fannie Mac. And we had been trying for years to refinance without any success. And when we had been matched with Milo, we now had a month to come up with money. We were trying to be really creative and figure out all these ways that we could get this extra $200 a month to pay what our loan was going to cost, which was the same price as our mortgage, this monthly loan that we had. And we got a call from a loan center, or from a refinance center. And no, my husband called to try and just talk to him about other things, not even refinance, because that was off the table. We had already tried that so many times. And the loan officer said, "Why don't you refinance your house?" And we, he's like, "Well, you can try, but it's not going to work. We've tried for so long, and here's why. It's not backed by Freddie Mae or Fannie Mac. It's this weird loan, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Well, let me just look at it. Let me just look at it for you." And my husband's like, "All right, whatever." So they look at it, and all of a sudden our loan was sold within that week and was backed by Freddie Mac. And we could refinance. And the amount of money that we saved on our mortgage was $200 a month. And it was a miracle. And we were able to get the loan and have the money to pay for it. And of course, things were tight. But we paid that loan off, and we don't know sometimes how we did it, but we did it. And I really feel like when that baby is supposed to come to you, those obstacles that feel insurmountable become totally doable, because that baby is your baby and it's supposed to come home with you. And so nothing is going to stop that in the end. It doesn't mean there aren't going to be hardships. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be snags. There definitely will be. But in the end, everything will work out. And that's just something that I have definitely learned. That process of going through adoption taught me so many things. It taught me how strong I was. It taught me to have courage, to do something that maybe didn't seem, I got some criticism for adopting a baby when technically I wasn't infertile. I got some criticism for that. And I felt it within myself at the time too, just thinking that I was so terrible. But I 100% would do it again because it was what was right for me. So I found strength, I found courage, I found faith to just go on my gut and what I felt was right. And we grew as a family. And those, Milo was our world. He changed our lives for the better. And we were in heaven with that little boy. We loved him, and he loved us, and he was such an amazing child, such an easy baby. I felt like I was an incredible parent, but really it was that Milo was an incredible child. And I've learned that since. My humility has dropped in that department, because Milo was just so great, and I loved being a mom so much. So we were so happy and so just feeling so super blessed. And fast forward about 3 years, and we feel like it's time to grow our family again. And this time, I really feel like I need to have the baby. I feel like that's what's right for this time around, is that I need to have the baby. And I still had a lot of worries about pregnancy. I still was terrified of pregnancy. I still had lots of body image issues that I was dealing with. But Milo gave me so much courage and so much joy, taught me so much about that I could do hard things. And I knew that I could do it this time. And I knew that it was going to be worth it, because Milo was 100% worth everything that I went through. And this time it was my turn to bring a baby into this world. And I knew that. And so I finally had the courage to do something that I never had the courage to do before. And I really, truly believe that it was because I adopted Milo, that Milo gave me that courage. Milo taught me what I was made of. And so my husband and I decided that we were going to try to have a baby. And I was teaching dance at a university and dance at a studio at that time. And so we had planned when to get pregnant so that I could have the baby in the summer, ideally, and then have more than 6 weeks off before I had to go back for the school year. And I only taught like one class at the university and like 2 or 3 classes at the studio. So I was still working very, very minor, and I wanted to be home with Milo. So we were like, this is a way that we're going to work it out. So the time came for me to be pregnant. I'd been off birth control for a year because we'd been planning for this, and I got pregnant right away, which again was a miracle because our plan was going to work out perfectly like we wanted, where I could have an early summer baby, have the whole summer off before I had to go back. And I wish I could tell you that I was super pumped to be pregnant and that I never had any issues being pregnant, and emotionally that I was amazing, but that would be a lie. I really struggled for the first probably 6 months of my pregnancy. I was terrified about, I had a very, very healthy pregnancy, and I was exercising every day. I felt great. I never was sick. So physically, I felt great, but emotionally, all this baggage that I had had for so many years came back up. And I thought that because I was so happy with Milo and so happy as a mom, that this wouldn't be an issue for me. I thought that once I was pregnant, I would just get over it. And the truth is that you have to do it. You have to live through it and work through it. I had to work through it. I had never made myself work through it before. And so I had to work through it. And for a while, again, I was really down that I was still having these feelings and these emotions. And again, I started feeling like, am I unworthy for this? And it took me about 6 months until I was able to come to terms with being pregnant and being okay with change and allowing my body to change in the way that it needed to change for me to carry that baby. And that might sound really selfish for some people. And believe me, I've had my own vanity issues over it and my own self-loathing over it, but that was the reality of what I was going through. And I realized that everybody has something that's difficult for them, and it's okay that it's different from someone else. I haven't heard of a ton of people who are as worried about this particular issue as I have, but for whatever reason, the dancing, my fitness level that I had worked so hard for all of these years, being able to let that go and say, I'm going to go do this for the greater good. Letting that go was hard for me. It was a trial. And luckily, I was super healthy, and I was super able to do everything that I wanted to do throughout my pregnancy. And I'm really, again, very grateful for that, because, I think it would have been a lot harder if I had been struggling with other things as well. But about 6 months in, I realized that I needed to change my attitude. I needed to stop sulking, and I needed to let go. And so I began really addressing and working through these issues, trying to have a more positive mindset. And I changed doctors at that time and went to a midwife. And I loved my midwife. And I was able to talk more with Joe. I let him in more. And I hadn't told anyone I was pregnant till I was 6 months along. No family, nobody knew, and I was very small, so you couldn't really tell. I had already found out that we were having a boy, and it was about a month after my 20-week ultrasound that we found out I had a boy before I told anyone that I was pregnant. So it was a little extreme, but it's what I needed. I needed to heal, and I needed to get to a point where I was excited to tell people that I was pregnant. And so that was a huge announcement. My family was in shock, and they were really excited. We were having another boy, which is what I really wanted. I wanted Milo to have a brother so that he could have someone that he could bond with. And I felt like that's what I wanted. I wanted two boys together so that they could bond and wrestle and play and have that connection. And especially with Milo being adopted, I felt like it was really important for him to have a brother. So when we found out it was a boy, I was ecstatic. And the rest of my pregnancy went without a hitch. My labor was not what was expected. I went all natural, got all the way to the end, was pushing, had some complications at the very, very end when I'm pushing my baby out and he won't come, and ended up in a C-section where they just had to put me out. No time to administer an epidural or anything. They just put me out with gas and they called it a slash and dash. Cut me open and pulled him out because it was super crucial that he get out right away. But he was healthy and fine. His umbilical cord was wrapped. That wasn't the main problem. There were a number of things, but my midwife said when they pulled off the umbilical cord and unwrapped it and he started breathing, she just took a sigh of relief, was so happy. That was the worst case scenario for me, was having a C-section, and I made it through it, and I healed really, really well. And after I had that baby, we named him Nash. And after I had Nash, I felt like a superstar. I was so pleased that I had done this and that I finally was able to conquer that fear. And I had these two wonderful boys, and my life was amazing and my life was great. And I was feeling really good. I healed super well. And I just was love and life. And when Nash turned about 9 months, I decided that it was time for a career shift. I was getting burnout teaching dance and having to travel back and forth, and I wanted something that I didn't have to leave my kids as much for, even though it wasn't very much. I didn't want to leave them. I didn't want the stress of doing the shows and things like that. So I decided I needed to look into doing something else. And I just have always loved moving in the fitness world, and so I decided to certify in yoga. I had started practicing when I was pregnant with Nash, and that was one of the things that really helped my mindset and helped me work through some of the emotional baggage that I was carrying. And so I said, this is probably going to be a good thing for me if I can have more of this in my life. So I applied for this college in Spain, just kind of on a whim, thinking they're not going to take me at all because I don't really have experience doing yoga. But lo and behold, I was accepted to this school, and I decided that I was going to certify in yoga. So I started working online, and so you did most of your work online, and then you would go to some immersions in Spain for in-person training. And there was 2 different ones. One was a week long, and then you would go home, do more at-home learning, work through what you were taught in that training, and then go back for a 2-week immersion later. So in June, right after Nash turned 1, I went for my first immersion. Everything went super great. Fell in love with Spain, came home, and was working that out. I was working 3 jobs. 3 or 4 jobs. It's the kind of side jobs, not full jobs or even part-time jobs at the time. I started nannying 2 little boys at that time, and I would take my boys with me and they would play. They were the same ages. And I did that so I could earn the money to go to Spain because we couldn't afford me to go. So I got another job so that I could certify and go and hopefully make a better future for our family. So I didn't want to leave the kids more, so I decided to nanny, and that's what I did. And actually those boys were really, really sweet, and we made good friends. And so anyway, I'd been working at teaching at the university, teaching at the studio, nannying these boys, and then I started teaching just once a week at a local yoga studio. So I had all these jobs and had 2 kids, and went to my last immersion in January. Was when I went back to Spain. And I'm a couple days into this immersion, and it's late at night, and Joe calls me because the time, that's a huge time difference being halfway around the world, calls me at night and says, Shanna, you're never gonna believe this. I just got a call from our adoption agency, and our birth mom is pregnant again. She's been trying to find a family to place her baby with, and she hasn't felt good about any of them. And she keeps feeling like she wants this baby to grow up with Milo, and that we need to be this baby's parents. And so she has asked the adoption agency to call us and ask us if we would take this baby. And I was like, what? We can't do that. We're totally not prepared to do that. We don't have the money. I was working 4 jobs just to get here to Spain, and I'm in Spain and we have a 19-month-old little boy. There's no way we could do this. That was my initial thought. It was shock, complete shock. We weren't in the adoption system. We weren't looking to get another baby at all. And my husband was like, I know. And he kind of seemed to be in the same frame of mind. But once I calmed down a little bit from the shock and let it sit, I thought, this deserves some thought. And we need to make sure that if that baby is our baby, that we know. Or if that baby has another family that baby's supposed to go to, that we know that too. And we need to know that answer so that we can feel confident in what our decision is. Because if she's supposed to be with another family, then that's okay. But if that's our baby and she's supposed to be with us, she's supposed to be with us, and we need to get her here. And she was due in a month again, so we didn't have a lot of time. But my husband had said, I need to call my wife, told him about this circumstance, and he said, can we take the weekend to think about it? And they said, yeah, take the weekend, call us back on Monday. And I think he called on a Thursday. I think it was a Thursday night that he called me. And so we were like, all right, we need to make this decision. And so we decided that we were going to pray, that we were going to ask our family and friends to pray for us, to help us to make this decision and to know what was right. And so again, I had some really cool things happen to me, and I'm just going to share one of those with you. So on Sunday, I went to attend our church in Spain, and I got on the metro to go out there, and I got there very, very early. So the building doors weren't even open yet. And so I decided to go on a little walk, and I was again contemplating this decision of, are we going to take this baby? It was a little girl this time. And are we going to take this little girl? And I was super shocked that it was a girl. I was like, I don't have anything for a girl. I've never had a girl. I don't know what to do with a girl. So that kind of made me really nervous too. But I decided to say a prayer. And I had been praying a lot, but I was waiting for church, and I said, I need to say a prayer. So I sat down on this cement wall that was just outside of the church building. And I said a prayer, and I asked that if this baby was supposed to be our baby, that I would be shown a very strong sign, a sign that I couldn't deny, so that when I needed to do hard things, that I would do them knowing that it was the right thing to do, that I could go through this difficulty and I could put myself out there again. I could raise these 2 kids really close together, with Nash only being 19 months old. They were only going to be 20 months apart, and that was really close together for me. My other 2 are nearly 4 years apart, Milo and Nash, so less than half that time for me. And financially was, you know, all the financial of bringing home a baby in a month without any preparation. Could we do that? Was that the right thing? And I said, whatever is the right thing, please show me a strong sign and I will do whatever it takes to bring that baby home if that's my baby. But please let me know if it is. And I finished my prayer and I opened my eyes, and next to me on this cement wall that I was sitting on was a pink knitted baby hat. I hadn't seen it when I sat down. I don't even know if it was there, but it was sitting right next to me. And I knew that that was my sign, that she was my baby. And I had many, many other very strong experiences that weekend that told me yes, 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 over and over again that she was my baby and we needed to take her home. So I, on Monday, called my husband and I told him what I had experienced and that yes, I felt like this was our baby. And he told me that yes, he knew it was our baby too. And he had had very strong impressions as well that were undeniable to him that this was our baby and she needed to come home with us. And so we said, okay, we'll bring her home. And my husband, the rock star that he is, I still had about 15 days left in Spain, or no, it was less than that, maybe 12 days left in Spain. To finish out my certification, I was very busy doing all the work for that. And he's like, I got this, I'll take care of it. So he was doing the paperwork this time, being crazy like me, feverishly filling it out and getting all of our stuff ready so that we could have our home study again and all of that. So I got home in early February. I think it was like the 4th that I got home. I got home late at night and got home the next morning. My husband had tabbed all the areas of the paperwork where I just needed to sign. So I was just signing my name. We drove up to the county offices and got our background checks because I had to be there physically. You have to do a thumbprint so that they can run your background check. So we got that done. The morning after I got home, we were up at the agency turning in our paperwork. The morning after I got home. And our birth mom had flown in like 2 days before, and she was going to again be out here for the last month of her pregnancy and deliver our daughter at the same hospital that Milo was born in. And so we got to meet her that day. And Milo got to meet her for the first time since he was born. And of course he can't remember, but we've talked about her and we've shown him pictures and read him her letters. And so he knows who she is, but he was so excited to meet her. And we were in the back room filling out some paperwork when she came in with the social worker and they told us she's here, and Milo beelined it right out and just stood smiling at her with these bright beaming eyes and this big face, and was in awe that was his birth mom. That was his mom that we had talked about for all of these years. And he was 5.5 at this time. And it was so cute. It was a really sweet reunion. And she was holding his hand and just wanted to be next to him. And of course we knew that she loved Milo. We knew that. And we had been, having this contact with her over letters and pictures. So she knew that Nash was born. But the thing that was really, really cute to me was that she loved Nash. She loved Nash. She talked to him. She let him sit by her. They would share food together. And she was always asking, where's Nash? Where's that Nash? And it was so sweet to me to see that she loved both of my boys. And we were so, so happy that we were going to add to this and bring a sweet little girl to this dynamic. So Ani was our daughter. Ani, we named her Ani, was born on February 25th. And again, it was a similar arrangement to the first one where she stayed that first day with her. She actually had her really late at night. There was opposite of when Milo was born, when there were no babies, there was a slew of babies born on the 25th when Ani was born. And so the hospital, she was supposed to be induced, and they kept pushing the induction time back because they were having so many babies being born. And so she was supposed to be induced in the morning, but didn't end up being induced until late in the afternoon, and ended up having Ani at 11 at night. So she stayed with her that night and rested, and we got to come up that next day. So we waited for Milo to get out of school. He was in kindergarten, so it was just about lunchtime. We got him out of school to give her some time to rest and recoup. And we didn't know if she wanted the kids up there, so we dropped the kids off at Joe's mom's house and went up to the hospital and met our sweet baby girl. And she looked so much like Milo. She was so sweet. She was little too. She was 6'1". And just the most calm, sweet dispositioned baby. Super, super chill. And we got into the hospital room and had been there for a while. And Ash was like, "Where are the kids? I want the kids to be here." And so we were like, "Oh, we didn't want to bug you if you were tired. We didn't, they run around, they're loud." And she said, "No, I want them to be here." And we were like, "Okay." So we had Joe's parents bring them up, and then they got to meet Ani, and it was so cute. I swear that Milo and her just have this amazing, incredible bond. And she had been sleepy the whole time we'd been there. So we'd been there a couple of hours at this point, and she hadn't opened her eyes once for me or for Joe. And Milo came in and he's, "I want to hold my baby. I want to hold my baby." He was very adamant that we bring her home from the beginning, and told us that she was coming home with us. Told Joe before he even called me that she was coming home with us. So he was very adamant that his sister was going to be with him, which was very sweet. So we sat Milo in a chair and we gave him Ani to hold. And as soon as he's holding her, she opens her eyes and she looks right up at him. And she knew him. And we were so happy that they got to be together as siblings. And it was really, really sweet. Milo wanted to hold her pretty much all the time. And Nash, just, being an almost 2-year-old, was just playing around in the room, and he was sitting up on the hospital bed with our birth mom. She was sharing her bag of chips with him and talking, and it was just a really sweet time that we were all together. And she left later that afternoon because that's how she's kind of a private person and feels like that's a way that she can heal. And again, just so much gratitude, and that she would have the courage to ask us again, even when we weren't in the system, but to follow her gut, in that she really felt like that this baby needed to come home with us. And so again, just enormous gratitude and love for her and for what she did for our family. And it was really, really, really amazing. We came home from the hospital and life was crazy. I still had to work my jobs. I had 3 jobs at that time. I wasn't nannying anymore, but I had just finished before I left for Spain. But I still had my 3 jobs that I had committed to until June, because that's when the school year ended, and they follow the school year because I taught in the university. And so I still had to work these 3 jobs till June. I had a newborn and a 19-month-old and a 5-year-old, which was insane to me because I had 9 years before I even had one baby, and in 5.5 years I had 3. And life was hectic. And to pay for this adoption, because it was so sudden and we didn't have the means, we decided that we were going to sell our house. And so within a couple of weeks of Ani coming home, we had our house up on the market, and I had to clean everything and organize everything and get everything ready to put it up on the market. So we put our house up on the market and we waited, and we got pretty much nothing. Nothing happened. We weren't getting a lot of people coming to look at our house. We had no offers. And I was feeling really super stressed. And it was a hard time for me. I was having a hard time adjusting. There was so many emotions that I really think I hadn't processed a lot, because when I got home from Spain, it was just like, get the stuff done so that she can come here. And luckily, our our background checks, our background check and our loan approval came in the day Ani was born. So, I mean, we were cutting everything super close. And it was just a lot. And I hadn't had a lot of time to process anything. And I was struggling emotionally. I was having a really hard time. And it was hard to try and keep my house super clean so that we could always be ready to show it. It was hard to have to leave. I was having 2 kids that were napping, and sometimes they didn't get a nap because someone was looking at our house, or we wouldn't have dinner because they were coming right at dinner time, and my kids were cranky, and it just was a lot. And I was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I can't do this. I'm working too much. And I knew I was done in June, and I was going to try to teach yoga from my house after that so that I had less stress and time commitment and travel commitment. But I wasn't to that point yet. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I remember just feeling like there's not enough of me to go around. How can I do this? Having 3 kids felt like 1,000. And I love them all very, very, very much, but it was rough. It was a hard transition for me. And the house on top of it. So the house was on the market for a couple of months, 4 or 5 months, something like that. We didn't get one offer the entire time. And we had dropped the price down incrementally to get to a point where, my son just came in, where in hopes that we could sell it. Well, it had gotten down so low. Okay. It had gotten down so low that if we sold it, it wasn't really paying off the debt that we wanted it to pay off anymore. And so at that point, we had to make a decision. Are we going to keep it on the market at the same price and try to sell it, but not really get the money that we want out of it? Or do we take it off the market and try to survive? And it was a hard decision. We had another townhome that we had put money down on that was being built and that we had designed and everything. So we were going to trade we had a new nice house, and we were going to trade our new nice big house for a half the size townhome, so that, life could be more livable financially. So we had a date for this townhome that if our house didn't sell by this time, then the townhome was no longer ours. We lost our down payment, and they would put it up as a spec home to sell to someone else. So we said, okay, if our house doesn't sell by this date and we've lost our townhome, then we're just going to take our house off the market and we're just going to try to survive. We're going to try to make it work. So our house didn't sell by that date. So we lost our townhome and we stayed in our house. We refinanced in our house, started over with our equity, and we're about a year and a half in. I mean, Ani's going to be 17 months this month. And we've survived. We've survived. It has not been easy. Financially, it has been hard. It hasn't been super fun financially, but we've survived and we've made it. And, and we're really, really grateful that we had. So again, when these obstacles come up and these things that you just don't know how they're going to work out, but you really feel strongly that you know that this child is your child, it will work out. And that's really what I believe. And I've seen it time and time again with myself in my own life and in other people who I've talked to, that they've had these miracles happen and these things that never seem like they should work on paper, and they do. And so I know that that's part of the process. That's part of what we learn as we go through this process, is we learn our own strength, and that we learn faith. We learn how to move forward when things are hard. And what a beautiful experience that has been for me. And I can 100% say that I am a better person because I adopted children. And I don't believe that everybody should adopt children. I don't believe it's right for every family. And I don't believe that every mother who may find herself with an unexpected pregnancy, or a pregnancy where she feels like maybe she's not in a great place to parent, I don't believe that every one of those mothers should place their baby either. It is a very personal and a very individual decision. But any time that a mother, whether it's an adoptive mother or whether it's a birth mother, tries to do right by their baby and finding a family, whether that's their family or another family, that is going to love and provide and take care of that baby and give it the best home that they can, then that is what I believe is right. That is good. Anytime a child is being taken care of and loved, that is a good thing. And I know that we are going to have unique challenges because we are an adopted family, and also because we are a mixed race family. My daughter and my son are African American, and they do not look like me. And I am 100% okay with that. I think that they are beautiful because it's a part of who they are. And I wouldn't want to change that. And I know that there are going to be challenges. I don't know all of those or what they're going to be. I can't predict the future. But what I can say is that I am going to 100% be behind them no matter what. I'm going to fight for them. I'm going to fight for my family. And I'm going to do everything that I can to teach them about their culture, to teach them about their roots, and to provide them with opportunities for success. And I know that we're going to have hard times, especially as my children grow up. They're young. But as they grow up, I know that this might be more of an issue than it is now. And I am aware of that. I am aware of what I signed up for by adopting Black children and children of a different race. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I can't tell you like the details of what I signed up for, but I know that I've signed up for challenge. Being a parent at all is signing up for challenge, and you can never be 100% prepared for it. But I am doing my best by those kids. And I truly believe that my husband and I are doing our best by our children, and we love them and we support them, and we wouldn't change them. And we wouldn't change how they came to our lives, because they have taught us, and our family has grown and learned and developed because of how they came into our home. And I am not ashamed that they were adopted. I am not ashamed of their birth mother. I am not ashamed of myself. And that's such an amazing, amazing thing for me to be able to say, because I lived with shame and guilt for so long. To be in this place, to be happy with my family, to feel good about my role as a mother is everything to me. And I hope that these stories will help to educate you more about adoption, about the struggles and about the joys, and that we can give you an insight into what it really means to be an adopted family. And thank you so much for joining us and taking this journey along with us. I hope that this will be an invaluable experience for you, because it has been for me already. In the interviews that I have done, I have learned and grown and been taught so much already. So thank you, and I hope that this is a good resource for you in helping you to decide perhaps maybe if an adoption is the right path for you.